Let me explain. So these are my cousin's Joy-Cons. These were swapped with the ones that I got with my actual Switch, and I couldn't tell because we have the same color Joy-Cons. But these are basically an example of Joy-Cons that weren't looked after the best, and I don't blame them because Joy-Cons are one of the few like Nintendo controllers that actually like don't last the test of time, and then one of the few like actual controllers that require some sort of maintenance. We all know about Joy-Con drift, right? If you've had it happen to you, it can be incredibly annoying, but if you told someone like before the Switch launched that Nintendo would make controllers that were pretty much the first to have like widespread joystick failure, they most likely wouldn't believe you, but here we are now. Like if you take a look back at Nintendo's like previous controllers, they were innovating while also making like long-lasting, well-made controllers. Like this is my childhood Wii U gamepad. It could definitely use some attention. You know, it needs a new battery and like an actual cover for the battery. But this was caused by 3 boys who didn't know better, man. Like I remember, like I have a lot of fond memories of like playing games on this thing, but I also have a lot of fond memories of not treating it the best. And that's the thing with like Nintendo products. If you give one to a kid, they'll play with it and they'll also abuse it too. But 9 times out of 10, that same console that was there for them as a kid will be there for them when they're older, if they want to play it. Like this gamepad isn't broken. All it needs is a new battery and it's good to go. Like all the buttons work. It just needs a little bit of money put into it. But with the Joy-Cons, while most of this is like classic Nintendo quality, the joysticks and like the rails, which are 2 of the biggest, like the most important parts of this thing, are 2 of its biggest weak points. So to take off the Joy-Cons, right, you need to hold this button down and then they'll release. It's simple. The problem is you may not have pressed this button down all the way or not even halfway. And if you keep doing that, like just like forcing the Joy-Cons out of the Switch like that, they like the plastic that like locks the Joy-Cons into place, it's gonna like start like chipping, like breaking off, and that'll lead to this. That's not good. Not only is this incredibly annoying, since some games will require you to like shake the Joy-Cons, it's also annoying for rage quitters, and it's incredibly annoying since a lot of children use Switches and they're not going to be aware of this issue until their Switch falls on the floor after they shaked it, you know? And I'm not saying that like only children are going to experience this issue, because like adults can make mistakes too, but children, I mean most children won't be aware of this until their Joy-Con, you know, flies off the Switch one day and it breaks and they'll have to buy new Joy-Cons. Or they could just not be aware of it entirely and just keep making their Joy-Cons loose and having to buy new ones like every year because they keep wearing the plastic piece inside down. So that's even worse. You can also just replace the plastic piece that locks these Joy-Con onto the Switch with like a stronger metal one, but that will involve opening up your Joy-Cons, and I understand if you don't want to do that, but from the looks of it, it doesn't seem like you have to go far into the Joy-Cons, so if you're daring, just give it a try. Plus, even if you don't have the right tools, the kit you buy on Amazon and eBay for the metal piece, it'll have the right tools that you need to like actually open up the Joy-Cons and, you know, do all that stuff. Now in terms of Joy-Con drift, this is definitely Nintendo's fault, but not entirely, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But if Nintendo had just ordered, you know, quality joysticks, this wouldn't be an issue. But I also feel like people should just, you know, care for this stuff more and just, you know, do more to make sure that it lasts as long as it can. I understand that people, you know, took care of their Joy-Cons and they still drifted, and I also understand that people didn't take care of their Joy-Cons and they didn't drift. We're just gonna have to baby these things. So back when I had my original Joy-Cons, I was like really worried about drift. I'm already known as like the overprotective one amongst my brothers, but with my Joy-Cons, I was even more like, you know, protective. Because like I would hear like horror stories on YouTube about like, oh, my drift is this bad, my drift is that bad. And I was like, I hope I don't get, you know, drift like that. Yeah, so the first time that like my original Joy-Con started drifting, I started using like lens wipes to clean the bottom of the joystick, because at the time I thought that Joy-Con drift was only caused by like dirt getting in there and like messing with like the inputs of the joystick, which kind of makes sense because, you know, it kind of looks like there's a hole for stuff to get in to, and just, you know, mess up the inputs. But yeah, I did this for a while and it worked well. I'm pretty sure I had a schedule back in like mid 2020 where I would clean these things like once every week or 2 weeks, since this was like quarantine time and I played the Switch like almost every day. So yeah, I would have to clean these like frequently so they didn't start drifting again. I should also mention that I got my Switch back in like June of 2019. So yeah, I'm surprised that my like original Joy-Cons didn't start drifting until like a year after I got them. But I couldn't just keep on, you know, cleaning the joysticks because I eventually found out that drift was caused by a gap in between like the metal prongs and the graphite pads inside the thumbsticks. This can cause dirt to get in here, but it doesn't solve like the actual problem, which is that there shouldn't be a gap inside the thumbsticks, and that's what causes drift. VK found that putting like a thin piece of paper or like a card underneath the joystick will like close the gap in between the graphite pads and the metal prongs. And this method seems to work pretty well because there haven't been any reports of drift happening with these Joy-Cons, and it's been like 3.5 years as I'm recording this video right now. Now let's say you don't feel like opening these things up. Well, you can always just buy new Joy-Cons, replace the thumbsticks, or better yet, send them to Nintendo, who will fix your Joy-Cons. Behold my genius plan. Send broken thing to a mega corporation. A mega corporation will send me new thing, which will eventually become broken thing. Yeah, that's just not gonna solve the problem. You're basically just delaying the inevitable with these if you do that, because they'll eventually just start drifting like they did last time. Like, it's a ticking time bomb.
And it's a ticking time bomb.
I'd say that it's pretty similar to the Xbox 360's Red Ring of Death, because every time your console red ringed, you would send it out to Microsoft in its cardboard coffin, and they would just send you a new Xbox that will eventually just do the same thing. But at least Microsoft took the problem seriously and, you know, like extended the warranty of the console to like 3 years, and they paid for all like the shipping and the cost to repair the systems, while they worked on like redesigns that wouldn't have like a near 100% failure rate. But with Nintendo, while I think shipping is free, they're just sending you new Joy-Cons, and you're also not guaranteed to get the same like color Joy-Cons back. So basically, if you send them like your special editions, you might just get sent like the basic like neon blue and red or the gray Joy-Cons. I know that it's a way smaller problem than like a general hardware failure, but that just makes me question even more why like there hasn't been a fix for this yet, because as I'm recording this video, the Switch is 7.5 years old. I'm almost certain though that Nintendo's like next Joy-Cons for the Switch 2 are gonna have like most of these problems solved. There's already rumors about like magnetic Joy-Cons, so we'll just see how that turns out. I'm honestly kind of worried about like how bad second-hand Joy-Cons will be from like eBay or like Facebook Marketplace, because if we have drift like this right now, just imagine like how many people are gonna get scammed on eBay when they buy like Joy-Cons off of eBay, and then like they just have insane drift like these ones. And that leads me to my next topic, because after seeing how bad the drift was on my cousin's Joy-Cons, I just didn't want to deal with these things anymore. I didn't want to open them up, I didn't want to use them. I just wanted, you know, newer, just bigger, just better Joy-Cons. I mean, quote unquote, better. And that led me to these. Beware of these. So these are the bin box Joy-Cons, aka the Nixie Joy-Cons, aka the Mexico Joy-Cons, aka the Moment Joy-Cons, aka the wired joypad for the Nintendo Switch. These are basically just made in just one big factory, and all these companies just put their names on this thing and just code their own, when in reality they all have the same features. Like they all have gyro, rumble that sounds like bugs, and RGB, and just poor build quality. Like, just look at how much bigger the bin box is compared to the actual Joy-Con. I thought I would never use these again and I would just use these forever, and yet this one is falling apart while this one is still intact. These honestly just feel pretty cheap compared to Joy-Cons, honestly. The plastics, the D-pad, just everything else just feels just cheaper than Joy-Cons. This one time in handheld mode, I was playing like Rocket League, right? And I had just lost the game of Rocket League. So like I shook the Joy-Cons because like I was a little bit like, you know, upset. And these and the LNR buttons came loose. I didn't expect that. And more recently in Florida, I had accidentally dropped these Joy-Cons from like about this height. And after I checked them up, the ZR button was sunk into the controller. The ZL button was also sunk in the controller too, but I was able to like push it out somehow. But this button, it's stuck in there. So now I have broken Joy-Cons while I was away from home. These also aren't the best for like fast-paced games like Smash Bros. Because they can easily just like misread your inputs. And for the love of God, if you're playing Smash with this left controller, have something to take your anger out on. I think it's the D-pad on this one because like whenever you press down or up, it may read it as like left or right, and you know, vice versa. Because for some reason, right, after seeing why Nintendo didn't put a D-pad on this controller, which is because like if you're playing with it sideways, you're gonna have like actual buttons to press on instead of a D-pad. But they decided to put an actual D-pad in this thing, which is the exact problem that Nintendo tried to, you know, like solve. And they just brought it back on this. Because since this isn't like 4 separate buttons, it's gonna like misread your inputs. For example, if I press down, it may read it as like left or right, or if I press up, it may read it as like left or right, and you know, it's just not gonna be accurate. I'd say that these are like a fine backup controller. They're fine for like more relaxed games, but for the love of God, don't play Smash with these. I didn't know about this before, but you can actually buy like third-party replacement joysticks for like the Joy-Con joysticks that fail on you. They're called the Goalie Kit Hall Effect joysticks, and they basically have like less parts that make contact with each other, and that means that like they have like less of a chance to drift than the OEM joysticks. I'm not promising they won't drift since everything can just wear down over time, but this has proven to last way longer than the OEM joysticks on the Joy-Cons. But they're not gonna last forever, that's for sure. What I was trying to say is that they last about as long as like a traditional joystick, like the ones from the Xbox and the PlayStation controllers. These are probably gonna last just as long as those. Your scheduled programming has been interrupted to discuss the lack of good Joy-Con colors. Like, I'm on Nintendo! You have so much potential here. You can make themed Joy-Cons based on your IPs, or just make more colors and variations. Literally just more options. I want more options here. Why can't I simply just buy blue Joy-Cons? Or just simply buy green Joy-Cons? And for the freaks out there, why can't they simply just buy orange Joy-Cons? These combos don't look too bad. But what the hell is purple next to orange? Why? This just doesn't look right. It looks like a sadist stylist color combination. And you don't even restock the blue yellow Joy-Cons, but you keep this abomination in stock? Nintendo, if you're listening, can you please restock the blue and yellow Joy-Cons and make a blue and green Joy-Con combination? But overall, just take care of your Joy-Cons. I do think that the vast majority of people will succeed in like the thin layer method, or just installing the Hall Effect joysticks, but a lot of them are just scared to try it. I still think you should try it because there haven't been any reports of them not working after a while, and it's been like a while since they've been discovered. I honestly want to keep these the way they are because the drift is just so absurd on these things, and for the love of God, if you need new main Joy-Cons, don't sin like me. The right Joy-Con really isn't that bad. Like if you didn't play with it and you just look at the calibration thing, you would only, I mean, you would think that it's perfectly fine, right? But you know, oftentimes in games, it would still kind of like drift down, I think. I forgot, it was like either down or up. So yeah, this isn't very useful. But the left controller is just the one that's just ruined. Like you can see, it takes a while for it to come back to the center, and you know, like it doesn't really. It's really off. Like in every direction. The right controller, I think, was only off on the bottom and the top, but yeah, this is off on like almost every direction. So yeah, this one's pretty busted.